Welcome to the S.O.A.P Bible Study Series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We have made it through 11 sessions, 11 weeks, and we've come to the number 12 in the book of Jeremiah, and we're going to wrap this thing up.
We are, finally.
Finally, we have 3 chapters left, 50, 51, 52, and they are long chapters. They're packed. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's not like we're just going to...
Well, 3 chapters, having an easy week, right?
Yeah, right.
There's still a lot
There's still a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
But, and it's powerful. I mean, it's like big stuff here in these last couple chapters.
So Jerusalem has fallen. It fell a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, multiple times,
yeah.
you know.
there was a lot of cleanup, and it's true, right? There's a lot of things that happen afterwards. I mean, you think there's nobody left, but King Nebuchadnezzar left the governor there, which meant there had to be some kind of people. There was an expectation to at least farm, if not have some kind of community. Of course, the governor was assassinated. And
there's going to be a standing army, and there's stuff still going on, right? Yeah.
So then we traveled through, and we were in Egypt, I think, for a lot of last week, and then we went through 5 chapters of all the nations surrounding Israel. Really being defeated by King Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. Or at least for the most part.
Yeah.
So now we get in for a couple more. And we start out with Babylon. Babylon itself.
Yeah.
Right?
So out of our 3 chapters this week, 2 of them are just God saying, Babylon, you're next.
Yeah.
You're next. This is what's going to happen.
So we have prophecy right off the bat where God is saying a nation from the north is going to do you in Babylon. Babylon, and it turned out Babylon was the nation of the north for
Israel.
Jerusalem, Israel and Egypt and most everybody else.
Yeah.
So a more north, and in fact it says people and animals will flee out of it. No one will inhabit it.
Yeah. In fact, in chapters 50 and 51, several times this concept comes up that Babylon is going to be laid waste. It is going to be a desert. God several times says, well, the jackals will live there. Wild desert animals will live there, but no people will even pass through. Yeah. And you and I were talking off camera. Babylon is desert area today. There's no doubt, right? It's in south central Iraq, out there in, desert. But there are still tourist areas. There's still highways that go through there. People still pass by that way. There is coming a day, and I think this is in the millennial kingdom, where that part of the world will be completely desolate. Nobody is going to go there.
Yeah. You think with weather changes and it'd be too hot, or
no? I think it's just going to be part of the curse. So like imagine the Lion King. So what's over in that dark part over there, right? Yeah, we don't go over there, right?
Yeah, right.
I sort of think that's the way Babylon is going to be in the kingdom. Hey, what's over in that dry area? Why is the rest of the world so lush and blooming and everything is so... Why is that little crop circle over there? Yeah. That's Babylon.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how I envision it, and I know I could be wrong, but that's sort of how I envision it.
So we are in Jeremiah. Right, and Jeremiah prophesied how long the people were going to be out in Babylon.
Yeah.
Right, and interesting in 50, he kind of circles back and says when this happens, right. So in other words, when Babylon falls, that's when the people are going to return back to Israel. Yeah. Right, and we see it. Right.
Well,
Cyrus comes. And, yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things that the Persians did. And the Medes and Persians will be mentioned a couple of times here because that is that nation to the north, right? And one of the first things that Cyrus of Persia did when he conquered Babylon was to tell the Jewish people they could go back home.
Yeah. So in chapter 51, verse 5, for Israel and Judah will not be forsaken by their God, the Lord of heaven's armies, for the land of Babylonia is full of guilt against the Holy One of Israel. And all over all these chapters, and especially this chapters, it says, get out of Babylon, my people.
Yeah.
Right? Babylon's going to be gone.
Right.
You guys need to have alternative plans.
Which is they can't get out of Babylon because at the same time God had told Jeremiah to tell them, settle down in the cities, plant vineyards, build houses. You're going to be here for a long time. But he says then now, when you see the destruction coming, get out. Yeah. Right? It wasn't get out for the past 70 years, but now it will be when you see this, get out. Which is what makes, say, the book of Esther so problematic, because Esther happens decades after Cyrus allows the Jewish people to return to Israel. The fact that there were still so many Jews in Persia, in Babylon, in that empire, that part of the world, that Esther's archenemy Haman could do such a potential genocide over these people, they shouldn't have been there anymore.
Right.
They were not doing what God had told them to do here in Jeremiah.
Right. Jeremiah puts on a scroll all the judgments that is going to happen to Babylon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of weird. He gives it to a quartermaster, and they throw the scroll in the Euphrates with a rock.
Yeah,
so
they got to tie it to a rock so it sinks to the bottom, right?
So what are we doing here?
Well, so cool thing, we've gone through how many visual illustrations.
We had figs, we had oxen, a yoke.
Yeah,
we had a bunch.
We had underwear,
underwear.
The almond branch, had all sorts of different things that the clay jar, that God said, okay, Jeremiah, do this so that it'll be a sign to the people, right? Well, this is the last one in the book.
Oh, nice.
This is the last one. Just like the prophecy and the scroll and everything sinks to the bottom of the river because it's tied with a rock, so shall Babylon sink and never come back.
Nice. Wow. But Babylon does come back.
Well, yes.
Not in a great way. But...
Well, see, now this takes us into the end times, right? This takes us into the book of the Revelation, where Babylon is named. And some people say, let me say, Babylon is named as the headquarters of Antichrist and the beast system, right? Some people look at that and say, no, that's symbolic for Rome or for something else, right? Based on what I'm reading here in 50 and 51, I'm thinking that might actually be literal Babylon.
Yeah.
So, for instance, chapter 51 here, verse 7, Babylonia had been a gold cup in the Lord's hand. She had made the whole world drunk. The nations had drunk from the wine of her wrath, so that they all have gone mad. That sounds like it's right out of Revelation 17. Mystery Babylon, the nations are drunk on her immorality and everything. I mean, I'm seeing way too many parallels because we know Jeremiah is literal Babylon. No question. Revelation, I don't see any reason for it not to be, especially since the Revelation is so steeped in the Old Testament.
All right. We get into chapter 52, and it says the fall of Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem has already fallen. In our timeline, Jerusalem's already fallen.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, in our timeline.
Right.
But even here, but he goes back, and we get some additional information.
Yeah.
Right, Zedekiah the king was 21 when Nebuchadnezzar installed him.
Yep.
So really young guy, but also maybe that was a reason, right? That Nebuchadnezzar thought he could control him more.
But that was probably also the reason we've talked in the past that Zedekiah was a really wishy-washy guy.
Jumped
right?
all over the place.
Yeah, whoever was right in front of him is who he was trying to please.
Yeah.
And that may just have come with a lot of inexperience and thrust into the position, by a foreign king and whatever.
Right. So we learn more about him. Right. So towards the end, Nebuchadnezzar installed him, but he actually he stopped paying taxes is an easy way to say it. And Nebuchadnezzar brought his whole army and surrounded Jerusalem for 2 years.
Yeah.
Now I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Yeah.
But Jerusalem's out of food. People can't leave. I mean, we're in dire straits here. And we got a little bit of this in Jeremiah, and that's when Jeremiah bought a field.
Yeah, right.
But once the walls are breached, the army, Jerusalem, They actually leave in the middle of the night, and of course they're captured and killed. And Zedekiah has to watch his family die. Then he has his eyes gouged out.
Yeah.
And then he's actually taken to Babylon and had to live there.
Yeah.
Until he died. And there's details in there about the looting and burning in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So a lot more detail. Again, not a fun read, but
Yeah.
A historical part of what was going on here. And I think one of the most important things was we also get a number. We get a number of people that were actually taken to Babylon.
Yeah.
And that number is 4,600 out of the 3 times that Nebuchadnezzar came in.
Yeah.
So roughly 5,000 Jews were taken out of Jerusalem, Israel, and exported to Babylon.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, because we want to be honest with our listeners, our readers, and everything. There's a lot of overlap in this account with 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, the end of the end of 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, and some of these numbers don't match up exactly. Yeah. Okay, and so some people think that there are a couple of different reasons. Some people think that they were talking about subsets, maybe only the men, but not everybody, if it's a smaller number. Some people think you mentioned 3 captivities. Well, technically, Nebuchadnezzar was not king during the first one because he had just defeated Egypt and he was going back because his dad had died. Right. He was going back to become king at that first one where Daniel was taken, for instance. So maybe those didn't count as part of the official tally under his rule, right? Because he wasn't ruling yet. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of different reasons legitimate reasons. We're not just trying to, gloss over some legitimate reasons why certain numbers may be counted differently, by whoever was writing, right? But there's a lot of overlap with 2 Chronicles, which makes some people think that maybe Jeremiah contributed to 2 Chronicles or wrote 2 Chronicles, or the writer of 2 Chronicles borrowed from Jeremiah. Hey, you wrote this down. This is exactly the information I needed, to finish the book. I put some of this detail in my chapter by chapter book, and so that'll be in the summary. So if somebody's interested in there, some of that detail is in there.
But at the end of the day, it takes us to the end of Jeremiah.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So it's kind of a long road. It's always fun. With 12 weeks, I think we spent on this.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
So the last couple of verses of Jeremiah, you would think, just all this disaster and destruction and everything. The last couple of verses are interesting because one of the kings who was taken, right? So this was Jehoiachin of Judah. He was taken, and in the 37th year of his exile. So he's been in Babylon now for almost 4 decades.
Right.
Okay. Nebuchadnezzar's successor, his name was Evil-Merodach. Okay, it was his son, because he had multiple sons who ruled after him, and then his grandson Belshazzar was the one who saw the handwriting on the wall, and then somehow, for some reason, this king took pity on Jehoiachin, released him from prison, and actually, it says, let him sit at his table and eat with it. He was still captive in the sense that he wasn't allowed to go back to Judah.
Right.
But he was not in prison. He was not, he was afforded some luxury there with the new king of Babylon.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
And I think it's an interesting foreshadow of that God is still looking out, even for some bad kings, there's still the Jewish people. And even in the midst of their exile, God was still watching out for them.
Nice.
And I think it's a sort of cool way to end the book of Jeremiah.
Right. Good. Thanks for sharing that.
Hopefully you have enjoyed this time through the book. Obviously, some parts are more difficult. Some are not enjoyable at all. But hopefully you've enjoyed your time reading through the book of Jeremiah, and these videos have helped you as we've looked at different things. As always, if you have questions and comments, please send those to us, and feel free to share these with your friends and family who might find them interesting. We will be back next time with a brand new book, a brand new series. And so until then, see ya.
Bye, everybody.